And we're happy to have you back here at the Placement Weeks. We are moving on to our final set of the day. It'll be Obey going up against Simplicity. That is your SPL 9 up against your SMLEU #1 representative. And this should be a pretty good set. My name is Finch. I'm joined here by Zeros to help me break everything down. This one is one of the closer ones. Both of these two sets today. The Space Station one and Xing one we just saw. No surprise that was such a close match. I expect this one to be pretty close too. Probably Obey slightly favored as the SPL team here, but really, this is almost dead even.
Yeah, for me, like I can't tell anymore. Like we saw SSG is losing out to SML, and like Sanguine looking so good as well. And then like it's gonna be so interesting. Like maybe Simplicity looks even better than Sanguine. Like maybe it's a dominant performance from Simplicity to put Obey in the grave. Maybe, who knows?
Yeah, it really is getting harder and harder to tell. The winner in this match will be waiting on the winner of LG up against Hype from SML, not Hype in at the console team. They'll be playing on in that round of 3. The loser, though, will get to keep right on playing. They'll drop down into that lower bracket, and looks like they'll be going up against a rival and then fighting on from there. The benefit, though, for LG and for SK for being the top 2 seeds is that if they drop a game, they come right down to losers round 2. They don't even have to worry about losers round 1, even if they lose right away. Just one more extra perk for being 7th and 8th, I suppose, in the SPL overall. But coming into this match, I mean, you were asking me coming into this one, what are some of the top matchups going into this? What are the interesting lanes? And I really think it's the 3v3. It feels a bit like a cop-out to say that, but Weekend Moswal Mineral up against Faeles, Deathpanter, and Genetics, that really feels like the area where you really got to focus.
Yeah, for sure. But then again, with Simplicity, I don't know if you know who's going to be the mid laner for them, because I think StreakUp and Deathpanter like switch around quite a bit, so it's going to be interesting. But Genetics and Faeles, when they're on the A game, they're both really good. So
it makes this team so hard to beat when those guys are both playing at a high level, especially Genetics, a support for this team that oftentimes looks SPL caliber. We had a chance to hear from him recently. Let's go ahead and get his interview going.
I think last time coming into it we had SPL scrims with a bit of Renegades, so now it's been a bit less, the scrims have been a bit less valuable, but we still got Alcohol who made it with us, so it's just coming in with a different meta now because something's completely different. So we weren't really sure because we used to run double hunts quite a lot, and it's kind of phased a little bit away from that now, but I think we're completely ready for what's going to happen at LAN. Mostly for people trying to prove that they're SPL worthy. I mean, obviously maniaKK is, but for me, Streak and Faeles and Panther trying to get back into SPL in the future, it's really important to make that top 8 to prove that we can push upwards.
Well, you heard Genetics himself talking about how important it is for this team to be able to make that top 8 and prove to not just to everyone else, but to themselves just how strong they are. But it won't be an easy task. Obey are their opposition across the way. And just like the way that we saw from Space Station Gaming, Obey have really been improving, it's felt like, these last few weeks and getting better and better every time we see them out there. And largely around Moswal, when he can get those picks he wants in the middle lane, it feels like Obey double up in terms of what they're capable of doing.
Yeah, I think if teams have been looking at Obey when they've been doing well, like it's been Moswal on his Toff and Merlin, especially these two. He played some Hera and stuff as well. Has been good, but it's especially Toff and Merlin, when Moswal ever had this, he's been looking really good. So I'm pretty sure Simplicity going to look to band us away.
I expect so, man. Simplicity are a team with a ton of experience. In case you're unclear, maniaKK, you might remember him for being on some pretty darn good teams. Faeles has played up at the SPL level. Deathpanter was as well. He was there on that Season 4 Mouse team that made their run with the double Hunter draft. Genetics is a top-tier player in StreakUp too. I mean, this is just a strong roster. And right out of the gate, banning that Merlin.
Yeah. I wonder though, like their second picks is a bit harder, right? Because like the Isis and Persephone, gods you usually don't want to let through. So I wonder if they're going to commit to the top here too, or if they're going to let that one through.
Wow, looks like Serket. That's a different option entirely, but I think this is good. Mineral is another player that I think gets that much better when he's able to have one of his comfort picks, and Serket's high up on that list for him. Take that away from him.
Yeah. Double Hunter banned away from Obey. Pretty rarely we see that these days, because like I feel like Hunters have been falling. We see so many double mage comps.
Yeah.
We have mage in mid and mage in dual lane. But yeah.
The underworld opens.
Persephone.
Coming out right away, and they're putting that in the hands of Moswal, I have to think, at this point, man. I trust Moswal to be able to play this one really well.
Yeah.
I feel like people forget all the time just how important he
Gaze
was
into the
like the
mirror.
Season 5 World
Yeah.
push. This guy's a monster.
Yeah, super solid player, like good mechanics, like really good positioning. Like you can tell that he's like a super veteran mid laner as well, like good positioning team fights. Just, I think Persephone should fit him really well. I don't know how much practice he has on it, but
Sure.
if he does have a lot of practice, I think he could pop off this game.
Amaterasu and Thor, the response pick from Simplicity. If you're going to give up Persephone, you better swing back with something as good as that. Amaterasu and Thor, not too bad at all, but that does mean Tyr can slide back over to Ducky. I mean, between this Persephone and Tyr, Obey have pretty strong picks here already.
Yeah, for sure.
Reinforcements will
Really
do it.
solid draft of both teams so far. But I was thinking one thing about the Persephone pick. I'm pretty sure Wowy on Twitter, I think his profile picture is a picture of Persephone. So maybe this is Wowy on the Persephone. I'm not sure.
Yeah, perhaps it is. After all that, maybe it's going to be heading over there to him. I mean, it certainly could be. Like we said, we know that Wowy likes to be playing the Thoth and the Merlin. The Thoth's still available. Maybe you pick this Persephone early. Simplicity, don't ban Thoth, and you can slide that in a little bit later. We'll have to see. As Athena is another one of Mineral's strong picks. Even though he couldn't get the Circuit, he can definitely still have really strong games on the Athena.
Yeah, I think Athena overall is such a strong pick. I'm kind of surprised we don't see. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised we don't see her more often because I feel like she's really good early game. She has good lane push. She has good jungle clear, and she has global out and like setup. I feel like she has everything you want from a support.
And is able to make such good use, like you said, of the Defender of Olympus, give her like a second life to come back in. Certainly a strong pick. Simplicity, though, will be giving Genetics the Terra. Terra is the one that you think of just making your team fights better. Same for Amaterasu, really. Between those two, Simplicity are going to be pretty scary when they all group up as 5.
Yeah, they are like Amaterasu as well. Like one best
me.
teamfight warrior in the game. Like so much teamfight potential from Simplicity. They are like, maybe they can get too grouped up, and that's not good either. You want to be able to have people flanking and stuff. Like their draft right now really want to stay grouped.
If you put a Grasp of Death, Persephone's ultimate in the middle of a big grouping from this team, it could wreak some havoc. You're certainly right to point that out as Mercury and Ho Yi come through for Obey. Mercury gives them a ton of late game carry potential and the Ho Yi.
Yeah, the set as well is more interesting here. Like there's always when you get this set pick, you're like, where is it going?
Yes. And at this point, it looks like it's going to the long lane,
Yeah.
doesn't it? They only got one carry in the form of that Poseidon, unless they want to do Thor ADC, which we have seen.
Yeah. In this case, though, it's fine, because Poseidon has so much objective damage, and Amaterasu helps out with that too, so they won't struggle with that, I think. Maybe pushing towers could be some kind of problem, but like killing fire won't be a problem. Who's gonna play it? It's gonna be StreakUp or Deathpanter. I feel like it's probably more of a StreakUp pick.
I think so too. This seems a little bit more likely to be heading over there to the long lane, StreakUp as the pilot, and this Poseidon to come mid for Deathpanter to play, which I imagine would then put him up against the Persephone. This Ho Yi has come through, and we have seen Ho Yi mid, but I just don't know if that sounds like Moswal. Maybe they'll do a lane swap and have Moswal take the Persephone to long lane, but Obey hasn't done that a lot.
I'm pretty sure Moswal. I think it's a mid laner, and I think it's gonna stay in mid. And I think
so
it's,
too.
Yeah, and I think it's Moswal on the Persephone. We don't see Moswal play a lot of ADCs mid, and when he does, it's usually these late game hunters like Shiba Lonka and stuff, which haven't worked out that great. So I'm pretty sure Wowy plays a lot of Hui as well, so I think this is a Hui dual lane.
Just doesn't quite seem like it fits the playstyle of Moswal. I agree with you on that one. Simplicity have the kind of draft, though, that if they make it to the late game, could potentially just run over Obey, but there are no slouches there either. I don't know, man. This one just feels even, doesn't it? Like it's going to have to be decided on the actual battleground.
Yeah, so much CC. Athena, Tyr, and then you have Persephone out there. You have the beats as well, so much beat force. And like, yeah, both really good drafts.
I think so, too. That means they're going to have to settle it on the battleground. Game number 1 about to kick off.
Simplicity versus Obey Alliance. Tom Banniger here on the microphone alongside Anatoly Alexeyev. And guess who's the observer? It's Doug LeBlanc. And the big story here as we watch our Pro League team take on our European minor league team is the mid lane Persephone. It is odd to see this character unbanned. If you're just joining us, she's been banned since she's come out. Totally. Hit us with your thoughts on Persephone.
I mean, when you're dealing with Moswal, what don't you ban against this guy, right? Like, he plays so many gods at a very high level. It was Simplicity banning away the Merlin, Circuit, and Isis. You don't want to deal with all that control from the Isis. Merlin provides a lot of space control. And Moswal, that's how he makes the big bucks, is picking gods that have space control. From the Season 5 days of the Apwash, the Zeus, the Vulcan from time to time. Straight away from it now in Season 6, but he's adapted very well on the Thoth and the Persephone. Speaking of Thoth, surprised it wasn't actually picked in this game, knowing that StreakUp likes that god. Moswal heavily prefers it as well.
Jungler going to win the battle as Mineral loses out in the speed buff invade. We'll continue to follow Faeles through the jungle on Thor, who is going to be Faeles. I mean, a key point in this match for sure. You are going to want to watch what this jungler has to do. Weekend has been on a tear as well as of late. He's seen a resurgence in his career, a lull the past few years, but I've really liked what he's been able to do, specifically on this Phase 2 Obey team. But I think this is going to be a lot about the junglers.
There's going to be a lot of weight on both of their shoulders. They're both playing global pressure gods, but in different manners. Faeles has more freedom of selecting his target, being able to go over walls, whereas, unfortunately for Weekend, he's going to collide with one on the Sonic Boom, so he has to be very accurate and rely on his teammates to set him up. But that's pretty easy to do, I think, for Obey. When you have an Athena for the taunt, a Tier for the Fearless, a lot of beads burning possibility for Obey Alliance.
Faeles stuck here a little bit. Weekend's gonna trap him out. Nice taunt from Mineral. The beads will be burned. Easy out there for Faeles as he wiggles around the corner. Nice job. Unkilled. That was the moment for Obey.
Rather frisky pathing, honestly, out of Faeles, but being able to invade that red buff was a good look for him, and he's not going to probably need that beads for another 140 seconds anyway. He's not going to make an offensive play probably before his ulti comes up. Getting those back camps, he needs to find that timing window to get his next speed buff, so he's going to secure his left side before backing to base. Both junglers, surprisingly enough, opted for the Assassin's Blessing because the last couple of weeks towards the regular season of SPL, Weekend started to stray away from picking this up, opting to rush boots. But with some of the changes to Assassin's Blessing in these patch notes is the Assassin's Blessing more sustain on the mana per stack, and also, more importantly, 50 health now on this item.
It's also just been... It's character specific, right? When you're playing the Thanatos like we saw a couple of sets ago, you don't need the sustain as much. So you can opt to rush directly into booties instead of having to lean on that item. But on the Mercury, certainly an option that he's going to stick with at the moment. Starting the boots instead of the mace, so we'll likely see him rush that movement speed. Don't forget, per the Mercury passive, he's going to get some power out of that as well. This is an interesting matchup. I've been talking a lot about set carry and how I think set carry is one of the best choices for the long lane. But against a traditional hunter on Wowy, you know, Wowy's going to have some range, able to jump away. What's your take on that side?
This is interesting because despite the set being last picked for StreakUp looking for the kill, I think that the Ho Yi that was picked before the set is a counter matchup in a way because it's hard to dive and commit fully onto Ho Yi. He just drops his suns on you when you activate Kingslayer and then you teleport in, and then what are you going to do? You're slowed. If you don't have beats to get away from that one, you're going to ultimately fall. But it's going to come down to poking out Wowy before he gets the Devo Gloves completed, where he's going to be able to at least sustain that initial skewer poke. And even then, it's a relatively short cooldown, so I'm not too worried for StreakUp. He just needs a little bit more of MP5, so I'm expecting him to finish the Transcendence as soon as possible.
Brief pause in the action as we see what our players are going to be up to. 0-0 in the early stages here as we take a look. And honestly, totally, I think it's going to be 0-0 probably until that level 5 moment where you said Thor's going to be able to pick up that ultimate and be a little bit more aggressive with it. It's kind of hard to jump on some of these characters, specifically Ho Yi, when they're not stuck down by the wall. If you walk in versus a character that can't jump over it, well, all of a sudden, I'm a little bit more excited. We'll jump right back in there as our players have fixed up one of their pieces there. But all told, I'm definitely waiting to see where these junglers move.
Probably waiting until the globals are available for both of them, if I'm being honest. And I'm also looking to see how some of the supports are going to back to base and drop their first set of wards to identify where these globals are going to be coming from, what lane. Harder to really know what direction Weekend is coming from, as he's probably going to go between the pathing of the tier 1, tier 2 tower at any given lane, so you're going to have to ward very deep there.
Big fight here in the middle lane. Moswal going to be keeping his distance, like that choice. And the 3v3 will relinquish control, walk back into the jungle.
You got to shoot your shots as the Athena, no matter what.
Yep.
Like, always look for those dash taunts, blink taunts, as long as you're not going to be dealing with a reverse Kraken. And at this point, Deathpanter only level 4, you're not going to fall victim to that quite yet.
Not this time. Wowy, level 7 versus StreakUp's level 6. And I mean, we see how raw that is. It's a full level lead as both players hit their experience point right now.
Well, to be fair, StreakUp also had 1 more melee minion and 4 archers to deal with afterwards. So he's about half a level or so behind after that point. Needs some neutral camps, and being able to secure at least one of those oracles helps him still kind of catch up a little bit longer. And this is the point where Set's not going to win the matchup. He needs more than just Ninja Tabai. He needs the fully evolved Warrior's Blessing to get the 15 protections and probably a full damage item to commit all in.
Luckily, Set can proc that Warrior's Blessing relatively simply. Long range on that skewer. So you're going to be able to see that happen pretty soon. Level 7 matching what Wowy had been able to do. This Ducky Maniac matchup should be pretty cut and dry. You know, Amaterasu tier 1. Nobody particularly wins. If tier plays very aggressive, he can kind of get some advantages early on, but Maniac's going to be able to heal it up, and especially if Maniac avoids the Fearless.
Interesting rotation out of Weak and anticipating Maniac to step outside of his tower, but this is the aggression that Ducky should apply onto Amaterasu while she's still weak, before she has a lot of sustain and a lot of mobility on that first.
Mid lane, one more time. Genetics just crossed the street. Mineral hanging out here pretty much forever. I mean, he's got a whole setup going on here next to Moswal. Genetics talked it into some of the damage, but light for sure. Now separating Mineral from the rest of the team. The ultimate will come out of Moswal, and down comes Faeles. Moswal jumps back, avoids the hammer. Now weakened, caught in an issue. 4 members of Simplicity unable to find the damage. StreakUp takes Moswal down with the around the corner skewer. Beautiful first blood. What you're seeing, of course, is the Persephone passive. She's able to kind of walk around while still dead, but make no mistake, first blood to Simplicity.
It was a nice attempt from Mineral with the shell initially preventing the death from Faeles, but he couldn't stop that second round. Great rotation from StreakUp, taking advantage of that mobility, using the Kingslayer, using the teleport from the Sandstorm to go to his clone. It was difficult for Wowy to keep up as the Hou Yi.
I mean, at the end of the day, that rotation is just not something you're going to be able to match. I actually thought, I mean, Obey looked like they got out of it. All 4 members of Simplicity couldn't find it until the last minute skewer.
Because you got Terra's Blessing as well to be used to mitigate some damage, heal yourself up, and you would think like that alone might deter the aggression from Simplicity, but they were convinced that there was something there because StreakUp committed to that rotation.
Had to find something because of the investment.
Otherwise, you're giving a lot of farm back to Wowy, and he's just going to be able to get to a comfortable mid-game spot. And as a Hou Yi that's about to receive a lot of physical power from that Transcendence, his abilities, one ricochet off the wall, yeah, you're certainly going to feel that one.
Yeah, you want to make sure that that player does not get to farm.
Round 2.
Genetics looking for it. Nice dash away from Weaken, and Faeles going to be off the mark as well.
I think it was just too far away to land at a target that he really wanted to. Not going to commit up between that tier 1, tier 2 tower after the fact, but I like the fact that Simplicity aren't shy to make these global attempts with a Thor.
I mean, you've got to be, right? You know, you miss every shot, you don't take on goal or whatever he said.
You miss 100% shots of the yeah. You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
From one butcher to the other.
Yeah,
Tom and Toli's prime cuts.
Bang. It's late.
I don't know. We're not there yet.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Literally right now here in the East Coast. It's happy hour.
Well, buckle up. It's the beginning of a long placement week. Really excited to be able to bring you not just these games, but of course, a double elimination will be going all the way up until Friday. Don't forget, big picture, the best 2 teams out of here will join the top 6 SPL teams at the SMITE World Championship, at Hi-Res Expo, at DreamHack on November 15th.
And already Space Station getting knocked down to that lower bracket, losing to Sanguine, the #1 North American minor league team. So Obey not wanting to fall victim the same way their SPL counterpart did.
SSG and both console league teams, Rival Console League and the Hype Unit Console League team, both of those will be down in the losers bracket. We'll see them a little bit later on this week for sure. Simplicity and Obey trying to avoid that very fate. Right now, Obey Alliance have a little bit of a lead, sub 1,000, so we won't write an article about it. But Simplicity, we're the ones to take first blood. That said, comparatively speaking to the rest of our games today, Tolia, a very slow-paced match.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. They're trying to feel themselves out, I guess. It's the first day for both of these 2 teams on your screen, so they're not super warmed up outside of the scrims and whatever kind of homework they've been doing behind the scenes. And the starts so far in terms of the buff invades, we haven't seen that either, because normally when there's not that many kills on the battleground, it's because there's been invades, but it's been clean disengages. However, this time, it's been kind of the opposite. It's just teams figuring out what the most optimal farming is, and they feel they have a better shot, both of these teams, at the late game.
Right side Harpies brought maniaKK over, and that'll allow Tier to start looking for the invade. Tier goes ahead and grabs it. Nice job to ducking. Weaken shades over just in case, is unneeded, and so the jungler will be waved off. He'll go back and hit his own farm there, no problem. A full 1,000 gold lead for Obey, wave to wave.
A little bit awkward for maniaKK, unfortunately, using that ultimate, trying to confirm his own blue buff, realizing once he used that first strike...
Already?
Yeah, it was already done, so he had to use the movement for the second and third just to get back to lane so he wouldn't lose any experience. But that's kind of what happens when you take a losing matchup. Amaterasu, not known for winning her lane. But now that she's level 12, she has the Divine Presence fully maxed out. She just needs Breastplate of Valor now to get that 20% CDR, to get the whole bunch of mana in MP5, to start mitigating Ducky's poke, and even surviving if Weaken shows his face.
Well, Faeles has been level 5. Been level 6, 7, 8. Now level 9 and 10. We were talking about the importance of him to set the pace of the game. Be active early. Start looking for these fights, and he has not been doing that. Now that said, his team is only down 1,000, and that's the beginning of something, but I certainly don't think Obey are investing that into anything wild right now. So my question is, I mean, is it better late than never? Should you just start looking for the fights? That's what I'm thinking. But is there another option for Simplicity?
Yeah, it could be like long-range poke. You have Thor Poseidon that pairs up really well together. You drop the Thor stun, you drop a Whirlpool right under that target. Depending on who that target is, like an Athena can't dash away from the cripple, or maybe the Thor that can't hammer away.
Sure.
But you do have to worry about the late-game threat that is Weaken, right? He's playing Mercury for a reason. He knows that the late-game potential is there. One good ultimate from a beatsless target, and then Mercury's pounding.
3 players on top of StreakUp, and Obey will go ahead and put one on the board for themselves. First kill at their disposal.
That was a communication play. As soon as StreakUp used his third ability offensively, boom, Athena ultimate right on top of Wowy. No potential escape for StreakUp. Now backing to base from death. He has picked up the Aegis, so maybe next time around he'll be a little bit more calculating on his aggression.
Conversation has been had about genetics rotating to the left side, so Obey will get the tower damage that is allotted to them, but ultimately will back off. About 10% left to go on the objective. Very simplistic plays going on here.
Methodical, I would put it, especially from the SPL team, because when you mentioned that Obey was up 1,000 gold and if Simplicity needed to do something about it early on, it's because Obey is the more veteran team, and that was with Simplicity getting the first blood bounty as well. Having the 7-3 totem of Ku lead gives them an extra 500 gold on top of their lead, so it's looking relatively clean in the PvE category.
With that said, you know, Simplicity, it was... The Thor is highly contested for a lot of these teams because of global ability and his high power, thanks to but all of that feeds into him being an early game character. I question when I look at Simplicity. Terra and StreakUp are some late game behemoths.
Oh, yeah.
But across the way, you've got Tier, Merc, Persephone. I mean, Wowy, not the latest of carries, but sure. I just question if Simplicity really want to make this game last 45 minutes. I think Obey has the advantage in that regard, even if I'm just looking in the jungle.
Yeah, looking at the jungler, fighter versus fighter, pound for pound, Faeles can't really match the firing power out of Weekend's Mercury late game, but it's a different thing that he brings to the table, right?
Sure, but and sorry to cut you off because this is the thesis of what I'm getting at. I mean, Faeles even goes first out of Mutants, which, if you know me, I love it.
Yes.
But you've got to use it, and I just really what I'm getting at, Toli, is I haven't seen Faeles do the thing.
Outside of
6
minutes.
Expect it early, yeah.
Outside of like that 6 to 7 minute mark when he assisted in 1 kill and then he was too far away from the second ultimate, we've seen him kind of dormant, like he's hibernating, waiting for the next season.
Yeah, and that was we got the first blood, and then we got the second shot, and then he was like, "Well, I missed, so I'm going home." And that's. No, you gotta put it in your back pocket and keep moving.
It's power spikes that they're really waiting on. They could be waiting on this Transcendence to be complete, as well as maybe a penetration item for Deathpanter.
Well, Faeles is gonna go up in an attempt to zone. Moswal might be his target, and Wowy won't be hit. And the leash from Simplicity's good. Genetics low HP, pop out comes the Kraken, and it does a whole lot of nothing. Obey chase Simplicity off of the objective, and now it's their turn. Gold Fury pulled by the blue team. This is audacious.
And there's no Kraken from Deathpanter. It did force out Wowy's Aegis earlier on as Deathpanter is committing with maniaKK.
Obey's able to take it away, but the after the fact could be big. Deathpanter dies to Ducky on the backside. The ultimate out of maniaKK won't do much. Wowy over the wall sends StreakUp empty-handed walking home, and Ducky says, ha ha ha, as Genetics finds his way back onto the safe side of the jungle. Obey Alliance. Obey Alliance. That was a dirty play.
That was very clean out of them, but honestly, that was a gift handed to them on a silver platter.
Yeah.
Simplicity forced that objective in a 5-on-5 without any sort of real timing windows.
This could be big for Simplicity. maniaKK with the wraparound. And the big ultimate from Weekend. Frenzy's popped, and maniaKK will pop just like that.
That is a small preview of the late game damage coming through from Obey, but they're not done yet. From a distance, Genetics getting shot by Moswal.
And Mineral takes the last hit. Ducky zoning. Wowy providing the tower damage. Obey Alliance. If you ask a lot of people here, Anatoly, Obey is probably closer to the bottom than they are to the top as far as the Vegas odds sheets are concerned. But this is a nice performance, and Simplicity is considered one of the better teams here.
Obey came to play for sure. They've done their homework. They got the picks I think that they wanted to, and they're playing them very well. They haven't given anything up too early, because even when we consider that death from Moswal early, that took a lot out of Simplicity just to get that first kill. So it's looking very clean, and it should be clean from Obey Alliance. They are considered the SPL team, even though Simplicity have a better record in the SMITE minor league compared to Obey. Obey had harder opponents throughout the entire Season 6.
Of course, and I mean that is, you know, I will always be here for that conversation. But even in a vacuum, and as difficult as that can be, people have been higher on what Simplicity has been able to do, and we saw Simplicity at mid-season invitational do very well up until, you know, Genetics got in trouble. And Obey, on the other hand, has not been performing until these last moments of the Pro League where everybody seemed to stand up. And so with that, you know, the question is, a couple of weeks that we've had off, has Obey really doubled down? Has the kiln really baked this team into something fantastic? Was Simplicity dropping the ball a little bit? Is it column A? Is it column B? I mean,
it's a little bit of both, I think, because as good as Simplicity has looked in the minor league, I think Obey, towards the end, like you mentioned, have started to pick it up with some of their unorthodox strategies and their execution and the communication that they've been able to do, because we saw some previews of the way they synergized their globals together. Mineral saving Wowy's life to be able to take advantage of StreakUp. StreakUp was having a little bit of a deficit earlier, struggled even further after that, as Obey now, I think, is in a very demanding driver's seat where the Fire Giant is still up, unless they wanted to wait for this next Fury in less than 2 minutes.
Well, they're 30 seconds shy of 20 minutes, and it's a very low kill count game. 4-1, Obey Alliance, up a little bit. And the gold is 7,000, which is not a slouch of a lead. 7K, for those newer to the scene, 7K is usually the beginning of the end of the enemy team. 7K is what I like to call the Braveheart moment. It's the last fight you can take when you're down, you know, before it becomes an insurmountable feeling 10, 11,000. That 7,000 is the last kind of bastion that you can take. So Obey Alliance right now, and I love what they're doing, they're looking to push their lead in a way that Simplicity can't contend with. Continue to spread out the map, and this, 7K is the last fight you can take. What if we don't give you one, and we just snag a tower here and invade there?
And normally leads are established based off of power curves, whether it's the items or your gods that reach certain strides at a different point in the game. And Obey's draft dictates more late game. So the fact that they've been able to build this lead with the better late game draft puts them in a really commanding position where Simplicity are going to have to climb uphill for hours to be able to get back into this game. And honestly, there's some potential if they can get off a good engage here.
Beautiful performance from Ducky. Genetics blinks to the back line, and Ducky is there. Shoves him in a locker, and Wowy slams it shut for the last hit. There's the swag flip to slow down Faeles. Beads is good. Kraken's better. Weekend comes down the middle, and Moswal puts Faeles down. Worth of note, the Aegis was strong versus the Deathpanter. But Obey Alliance continuing to push forward. The tower has Moswal behind it, but the rest of the team in front. StreakUp underground. Number 7, as we hear Weekend taunting to the bank. And 3 players on the bench. Obey are going for fire.
Just too much control. Ducky and Mineral together. Weekend barreling down that backline with that sonic boom. It was so difficult for Simplicity to disengage once they committed outside of their tier 2 tower. You talked about one last hurrah potentially, but how can you even do a hurrah when you've got a taunt and a fearless and a sonic boom to deal with?
maniaKK shows up, doesn't get what he wants, goes back home. Let's be on Black Friday. 22 minutes in, and Obey have the lead that they asked for. 11K, baby. That is hot.
Yeah, the door is wide open for Obey to just walk through onto this middle Phoenix if they want to eventually. After getting some of these towers, I think that Simplicity needs to reevaluate for game number 2. Not necessarily picks and bans. I'm thinking about gameplay specifically. Normally, like, you win the battle first on picks and bans, and it wasn't the case for either of them that got such a better composition that they just made it work. It was all about how they play their composition. Like you mentioned before, Faeles, a little active early, but then just turned it off all of a sudden. And then Genetics, he got the blink at level 1, actually, I believe, but didn't use it, I think, to its fullest capabilities.
And that's exactly what I was driving that whole middle of the game conversation. Thor Poseidon, I want you in my comms telling me when your cooldown is off. The amount of time your ultimate is off of cooldown should be a very low number. You know what I mean? With this combination, which is why I loved the second shot when Simplicity missed, they were just out of range. I liked that because that showed me that their mind was in the right spot. Just keep going, be a volume shooter, right? Show up and every opportunity, go for it. We did not see that continue from Simplicity, and that neutered their mid game.
You could tell their mindset was there with the strategy, but once they started to just farm, it felt like they were waiting for Obey to mess up an SPL team. Like, hey, we're going to give you the ball, and we're going to allow you to try to score on us and hope that we can capitalize off of it.
And you know what? That's fair, Tolly. I think a lot of intelligent people had this Obey team lower than this. And you brought up a very valid point about, you know, pro league versus minor league and the level of competition. And maybe that's what we're seeing.
Possibly.
But I also think Obey are playing a much better game than they have in the past. I mean, straight up and down, Mineral looks fantastic, and frankly, I don't think I've been able to say that for a long time.
I mean, just to look at the numbers between these two teams in all of Season 6, Phase 1 and Phase 2 combined, Obey Alliance, they only won 3 sets, lost 15, with a -34 game differential. Whereas Simplicity, they won 16 sets, losing 6, with a +17 game differential. That just goes to show you the quality of games compared to the minor league and the pro league, and how the numbers don't necessarily always dictate who's more advantageous to win the set.
I agree with that one. I am definitely a numbers never lie, but they can certainly mislead.
They could be a little misleading.
Also, for what it's worth, I look at Obey Alliance in the same school as LG, where Phase 1 and Phase 2, you're a different team. Moswal over Lasbra. Trust me, we talk Lasbra in the jungle. Much, anybody has heard me, it's a much different take than Lasbra in that middle lane. Mozzie has worked out very well here. And right now, Obey are ready to bang. Left side is going to be their target. We've got the 1v1 with Weekend in the middle lane. Mineral going to be focused, and will take it like a champ. Ducky whiffs on the Fearless. Fails, in trouble. Mid lane still weakens. Obey Alliance, unable to go all the way in, but still Wowy finds place and is able to bring the Phoenix down to about 10%. Mineral trying to deal with genetics, but Thor's in the air. This is huge for Faeles. One goes down, but Ducky is dealing with StreakUp. Down goes the set carry. And Mineral still pushing forward. There's the blink. Fearless power cleave. Moswal puts him in the ground. Left side bird is dinner. And Obey Alliance rotating over to the middle lane.
Only Faeles and Deathpanter to play defense. Obey Alliance opening up all the birds now. Left side crumbles to the ground, as does middle. Obey now transitioning over to the right side shortly after. Not going to back to base yet. Actually will is mineral because he has the Defender of Olympus.
Playing it safe, I think it's the right call. Obey might have been able to filter into the throne room after that first Phoenix, but I like this choice. Get your fundamentals down, not lose to the silly stuff. Whirlpool comes out to zone, and Ducky's taking the tower. Phoenix goes down to 25%, and that will be the retreat. All in all, 27 minutes on the clock. Obey up 8 kills, and a slew of gold.
The way Obey handled that left side Phoenix siege was perfect, as to baiting out the Kraken early enough that once Weekend did commit, he didn't have to worry about that big ability.
What's going on here? Deathpanter looking for the 1v1, largely finding it. As Genetics comes through, and Genetics will be punished after the fact. Down he goes. Weekend on the last hit. Persephone passive coming in the clutch there. The ultimate post-death.
A good play from Moswal as well. That actually set up Weekend not once, but also twice. Faeles is not done yet, though.
It's Weekend. Cheeky about it. Ducky flipping to the right. Misses it as Faeles jukes to the left. The overstay, for sure, from Obey Alliance. The Fire Giant's up. Tolik, Simplicity, reasonably look for Fire Giant.
It's hard to say because you got so many fire minions on the left side and now a couple to deal with in the mid. I don't see a world where Simplicity can grab it, even without their tank onto Genetics. So it is technically a 4-on-3 still. Obey Alliance can easily contest that Fire Giant, preventing you from securing it, maybe even stealing it away and securing game number 1 in this best-of-3 set.
It's like Obey has been given the Tiki Torch. They've earned immunity for this mistake, right? Because of their success in the last trial.
They'll not be eliminated this round. But the way I think that Moswal is playing the Persephone is so clean. He's throwing out his ultimate between the left side Phoenix and around that blue buff, both onto Genetics.
Yes.
Because the way a Terra is playing is very telegraphed. You drop the monolith, you want to crash through it. As Terra does that, you're going to channel that Persephone ultimate, Hadouken her in the face, root, cripple her in place, and in the left side Phoenix, that allowed Weekend a very easy sonic boom target to just wipe Genetics off the map.
Here's the I am very smart bronze level conversation. Obey Alliance only wins because they get Persephone.
No.
Thank you. Break it down a little bit though, because Persephone is a strong character. She's strongest in the lane phase. And to be fair, Simplicity couldn't mess with Obey during the lane phase, so maybe that's part of it. Fire Giant Frenzy, 10% to go. Simplicity are here. They can easily steal, and they will. Fire Giant belongs to the Europeans. Faeles is the first one. Double kill for the jungler as he finds Weaken after the fact. Mineral being chased by the carry, and Ducky dealing with Deathpanter. StreakUp grabs one. It's a 1 for 3. Obey Alliance not immune to that trial. They won't be voted off just yet, but it's going to be uphill, and Simplicity are one step closer to tying this up.
This is the comeback that Simplicity needed. Obey too ambitious from forcing that Fire Giant in a straight up 5-on-5. They didn't even let the minions in the left or the mid lane get close enough to the Phoenixes before they pulled the trigger there. They dropped the bombs out of the Ho-He from Wowy, they popped the Frenzy, and at that point Simplicity knew they were full on committing to this objective. They didn't have to worry about any of their minions against their exposed Titan.
Tier 2 tower right side goes down. Moswal in some trouble. StreakUp's got him. The ultimate will whiff, and StreakUp fully commits. Moswal goes down, but StreakUp intelligently turns around as he sees the entirety of Obey coming up. By the way, Weaken has ultimate. That said, even a late game Mercury, I don't know if you want to jump on a late game set with all that power.
And I still think that despite that drop from Obey Alliance, they still have a pretty good lead to work with. Weakened Phoenix on the left and the middle means that, honestly, if I'm Weakened, I could maybe even Sonic Boom that and go for the back door if I have the enhanced Fire Giant.
I mean, that's kind of, you know, I was having some fun with the Survivor reference, but that's kind of where I was going with it in the sense that, like, listen, if you get a 20,000 gold lead, you can make that Fire Giant mistake is a game-ending mistake if it's a 5,000 gold differential.
Sure.
That is a game-ending mistake. But since Obey were so far ahead, they can afford to make that mistake and then come back. But now, take a look at the spreadsheet down there, folks. Items, nice and even. Everybody got 6 items. Now, Obey, they don't have the extra strike in the bag. They don't have the moment of missed opportunity. They don't have time on their side. This is an even game. Gold says 9K above for Obey Alliance, but this is tied up at 31 minutes.
But what Obey does have is a late game Mercury with an absurd amount of critical strike chance, fully stacked Rage, Deathbringer, Malice, and Erendite as well, just for extra power and mobility after the Sonic Boom. A good way to one-shot and replicate that one-punch man status.
Ducky blinking. Find Deathpanter, big damage. Deathpanter gonna return it, and Faeles gonna finish it off. Double Fearless as Ducky tries to heal himself up through it. The rest of the team in a different time zone. Oh, Ducky. Wrong page, mon frere. Moswal goes down. Wowy's gonna eat it as well. Faeles on a tear is the one to tie the game up kill count-wise. Weaken on a different game plan. Pushing up middle lane by himself, will be met by Deathpanter on the Poseidon.
This is game. This
It's
is honestly
over?
a game. Yeah, this is not strike 2, but this is honestly a strike 3 from Obey Alliance. It took 2 big mistakes for them to drop the ball in Simplicity, capitalizing off of it. Weaken not there to defend. Deathpanter gonna chase him out.
Well played. Simplicity are able to take down the right side Phoenix. Nobody here on defense. And what looked like Obey's perfect day, despite Weaken's last moment kill, will come out for Simplicity, and that is a turnaround and a half.
Yeah, I was really surprised there. maniaKK on the back line did a great job zoning on the Amaterasu because no one could have assisted Mineral and Ducky that had great engage. Like a double Fearless, actually catching 3, but one of them did beads out of Obey Alliance, and they're going to have to go back to the drawing board and figuring out the game plan to clean out the game because they had such a great lead up until that, 28-minute mark Fire Giant.
You know, we saw strike 1 on the left side of the map. This was like I said, a 20,000 gold lead, I think, at its height. We saw strike 1 on the left side of the map. Strike 2 was that Fire Giant where everything went awry. And then strike 3 was right there. Ducky goes a little bit too far deep by himself, doesn't have the team. You got to win as a team, and right here, we see them lose as a team. Obey down 1, Simplicity take the lead.
We had a whole bunch bunch of people that we just didn't really click. There wasn't much like talking with each other at the house and stuff. So we got some people that we're friends with, they're good players. Everyone's talking about the game. We can kind of talk with each other about the problems that are happening. It's like just way more communicative. That's kind of leading to the success, I think. People are way more vocal in-game, out-of-game, and I think that's showing. For us, with like us being a whole bunch of like rookies and kind of people being on the lower ends of team and stuff, I think that the biggest thing to have when we are a bottom team is just having people that are positive. I think that's kind of almost everything in our position. It kind of lets us, again, improve and not kind of think about all the wrongs and kind of like get hung up on that. I try to be kind of like a rock for the team. I try to just do my job, be as consistent as possible, have consistent comms. If I see like people kind of faltering in a game, I'll like speak up or I'll try to take a lead. I think that we do really well with the more games we play and stuff, so I think it will be good for us. And I think it's also, we have a lot to prove individually and as a squad, so I think this is like a good time for us to show what we have. Our egos are getting a little bit big, especially Ducky. He's kind of grown this year in terms of that. He's like a lot more confident, and I think the same thing with Moswal being like a world champion. Obviously Kurt. So yeah, I would say that we have a little bit of a chip on our shoulder.
And after controlling the game for basically its entirety, Obey at the very end step aside. That way Simplicity can grab the win. Now, that's quite unfair, right? Obey, after playing really, really well, only takes 2 mistakes, and a team as good as Simplicity can snatch it away from him right at that last minute. My name is Finch. I'm still joined here by Zeros. And is that how you saw it as well? Obey control basically 90% of it, and then 2 team fights got to control, and the game's over.
Yeah, so weird. I was prepared to go in there, wow, like Obey playing so well.
Right,
like
yeah.
slow and steady in the early game, he's farming, like, and they kind of showed it. Like, I felt like, okay, we know we're gonna win the mid-late game, so let's just farm it out in the early game, and that's what it did. And like, they was playing so many good fights and so many good sieges.
Yep.
Then was one misstep by Fire Giant, and everything is falls apart.
And that Fire Giant play in particular was the one where the house really came tumbling down, because not only did they lose the objective, but they basically get wiped there as well. And that's what it feels like, kind of brings Simplicity back into it, almost mentally. Like they were looking for a fight afterwards. They lose 4 members. Weekend is kind of near the Phoenix, doesn't back to try and help. I don't know how much one Mercury could do anyway, but even still, the game was out of reach.
Yeah, I mean, it's so weird as well. Like, even after losing a Fire Giant, they didn't lose a Phoenix or anything. Like,
right.
sure, it sucks, you know, because like Simplicity.
They didn't lose much at all, right?
Yeah, Simplicity kind of gets to full build, and they kind of even play ground. They're being ahead all game, Obey.
Right.
So there's that. But then after that, like, Ducky and Mineral dives in 2v5 at Gold Fury. Simplicity have Fire Giant as well on everyone apart from Deathpanter,
yep.
And they just die before anything else happens. It's like, I'm not sure if that's like a tilt play or whatever that was, but like, it's super weird.
And it's so weird to do that, especially into this set. He does so well when you're able to close that gap for him, you know, and he still has all his tools available, and he's in range to deal so much of his damage. That's part of what hurt them in this game. I mean, there were definitely some moments earlier in the game where Simplicity looked good, but for the most part, I imagine a lot of their highlights come towards the end of the game. It was mostly Obey up until this play right here, the Fire Giant low. They fail to secure, and Faeles gets right to the back line for the punish.
Yeah, super weird play here as well as Fire. Like, they pop the Girdle, they have Mercury with triple crit and Hydras and Aeronite. When Girdle is popped and Fire is at like 20%, why not just commit? Like, it's too late to reset. You saw what happened. Like, just try to commit. It's so hard to out-secure a Mercury with that much damage.
And this fight here, I mean, we talked about it earlier with Hype Unit, right? In that play they call where they're chasing that tier 1 tower over in left. I mean, what was the best case scenario in this last fight that they have over there near that Gold Fury? It couldn't have been worth the risk over there at all to take that fight, and they take it sloppily anyway. Obey are certainly better than what we saw from them in those last 2 team fights. They showed us the preceding 28 minutes. They just got to buckle down, remember how they got got there, and I think that they can definitely get back in this set, but that's got to be a heart-wrenching way to lose.
Yeah, they have to bounce back, because like obviously, as we said, that last Gold Fury where they lost the game, it kind of looked like a tilt play.
Sure.
It's like they could just have let that Gold Fury go and they would have been fine. They could have fought at even grounds, like maybe they still lose at the end, but like they didn't need to lose like that.
No, not in that manner, and that's one that can weigh on you if you can't find a way to bounce back from it. Obey will be first picked this time as we move into the picks and bans for game number 2. Do want to remind you all, the winner of this goes on to play the winner of LG versus Hype SML. The loser drops down to play, we now know, Space Station after Sangwon won their set earlier on in the day. And that Space Station team looked ready to play, by the way. Game 1, maybe not so much, but after that, they're here. So, I mean, if you're Obey and you slip down there and end up against Space Station, your tournament might just be over all of a sudden.
Yeah, wow, we might have 2 SPL teams against
The
each other.
underworld
Like one of the
opens.
SPL teams already going to be out of the running now. That's crazy to think about.
Okay, so here's my thing. I understand you won that game, but that's despite the fact you let Persephone be first picked by Obey. Moswal played this well. I don't know about
Gaze
giving it up here
into the
again. Your
mirror.
thoughts on this Persephone?
She did well. She did not carry. I think last game everyone on Obey played really well. Ducky especially, I think, when they were still winning, that is.
Right.
So like, I don't know if Persephone. I think Genetics struggled a lot against his Persephone ult last game as a Terra. He got ulted by Persephone. He has to auto attack 5 times to get out of that cage.
Right.
And his team didn't really help him out with that either. So like, I don't know. Persephone was good, but it was definitely not like the carry.
Well, so far, this is a run back, essentially, of what we saw in Game 1. Persephone first picked, Amaterasu, Thor's the response to
Wisdom shall be my
and then
shield.
Persephone, Tier, Athena. And I don't know, man. I think if I'm Obey, I'm okay with a salty run back. If it's not for a couple of poor decisions in the late game, they win this one. But now here's the Poseidon. So far, this is the full-on run back.
As you said, if I'm Obey, I'm super happy with this. Like, they were crushing it last game, and honestly, should probably have won that. I don't know what happened. It's just like a late game bad decision. So I have to be behind Obey on this.
I think so too, especially they can get that Mercury back over there for a week, and he was looking good on this one as well. Capri and Cupid ban out. I am surprised up until this point how much Simplicity is okay with going back into that same composition. It's not to say the comp from last game they had couldn't have worked. I mean, it was obviously a very good composition, but Obey played it slow and steady and dragged well, not a win, but a pretty big lead out against them.
Yeah, even in the second ban phase, they don't ban anything that they played last game, like the Wowy or the Mercury. So I guess we're just gonna see a full run back here, maybe. I'm not sure.
Well, now that we're this far in, you might as well do it properly. Here's the set, so all Simplicity's missing is the Terra. Obey, go ahead and grab yourself a Mercury and a Wowy here, and we'll just run this back.
Gotta go fast!
Yep, I mean, here we are on the precipice. I mean, Zeros, you're I don't even want to say former pro. I assume as soon as you're ready, you'll be right back in there. Talk to me through the salty run back, I suppose.
Sometimes it can be rough, but for Obey being so dominant in last game, for the most part of it, I definitely agree with Obey here. I don't agree with Simplicity letting them get everything again, but I don't know. I don't know, man. This is so weird.
Maybe they'll switch supports here in this last slot and give it another try.
That might be true, actually. Maybe a support that has a CC out or something. Yes, that's really smart. Because, like, as I said, Genetics on the Terra last game had so much trouble with the Persephone out.
Right.
Now it's playing Xing Tian, so he can ult out of it for CC immunity. So that's a really good.
I think so too. I don't know if you fully want to give them all those tools back they look so good on, but I'm glad they're not just doing it exactly the same again, because I don't think that that's the kind of game that you should feel particularly confident about going right back into. Instead, they'll add the Xing Chen. It's great into this Mercury and into this Wowy, and as you said, should be a bit safer up against the Persephone. Not bad here from Simplicity to change things up at that 10th pick.
Yeah, I was kind of hoping for the full run back.
Me too, right?
That'd be so funny. If that happened, I would have no idea what Simplicity was thinking. But yeah, as we said, Xing Tian, really good pick here. Still, again, this Obey draft, exactly the same draft as last game. Still a really strong draft, like possibly the best mid laner in the game right now, Persephone, and like all picks around it, super strong as well. So just again, like a great draft, 2 games in a row, I guess.
Exactly. I mean, if they're going to get the same one, why not take it? Now, is it potentially damaging for Obey, though, if they lose with the exact same comp twice in a row? It might have been worth changing it, even though the comp was good, just not expose yourself to that risk. I think losing twice the same comp could hurt.
Yeah, sure, but I think the Mercury does make sense, because Persephone, Wowy, unless you go crit on Wowy, but I don't think it did, like, they're not like super insane objective damage. Mercury definitely helps out with that part.
Yeah.
So I think the Merc was good, and like honestly, you can't blame everyone on Obey. Last game did a lot of work.
Yeah.
Up until that fight again.
So I mean, hey, if things go the same way at the late game, just make those decisions a little bit crisper, and maybe Simplicity can't punish. But in that same note, perhaps Simplicity feel as though they can do a better job not letting things get so far out of control throughout that early to mid game the way that it did in game number 1. I mean, what was it that kind of that hindered them and let things get out of control that they can adjust here?
Yeah, I'm not sure. Like the set didn't really win the laning phase, but will you see in this game?
Well, I'll give our chance here as we move into game 2 with a pretty close to a full run back.
We'll certainly see how that one works out. Great job on the desk, John. And of course, Zero's putting in the time as well. Deathpanter, Faeles, maniaKK, StreakUp on the same gods, genetics. Bringing out the Xing, Tian, Obey Alliance. Well, they're feeling pretty game 1 as well. And I mean, like Zero said, man, I saw nothing wrong with what Obey Alliance did outside of the 3 strikes that we mentioned that ultimately killed him out. So if the game goes 90% of the way it went last time around, Obey takes this. We're going to a game 3. So yeah, pick the same draft.
Just pick the same draft, change up your mid-game, late-game objective control and decision-making, and I think that Obey Alliance is about to stretch this to a game 3. It took a while to even see the first blood, and even then, it was StreakUp hitting a random skewer through a wall with a rotation out of the long lane that got Moswal under that lethal threshold as we're seeing genetics getting chased down by Mineral.
You know, I will say, though, Toli, is that Simplicity are, from what we've seen of them at LAN, both mid-season invitational, etc., momentum. Letting them get game 1 might just be it. So I think that there is something to be said about Obey Alliance just repeating what they did in game number 1. And I think there's something to be said about Simplicity feeling so high on themselves that it just might be over here.
I mean, if I'm Simplicity, I'm feeling really good after that last game. You know, we took out Obey Alliance. Granted, the number 9 seeded SPL team, but still an SPL team nonetheless. And they were behind for most of that mid-game pressure, like 15,000 gold behind. That's a good feeling comeback. So yes, I am going to run back my composition, minus the Terra, plus the Xing Chen. But if I'm Obey Alliance, I'm feeling a little salty about that last game loss because we had it in our hands. It just kind of slipped through our fingertips. So running the same composition kind of shows their saltiness. So they're just going to try to clean up some of their mistakes. No more Fire Giants this game until they have like 3 guaranteed members dead out of Simplicity. And one of those players has to be Deathpanter. You don't want to deal with that Kraken.
I guess that's the case. That could be the case. I mean, I'm there as well. I think that Obey in the post game, looking at them, their conversation did not seem happy up and down. It will avoid some of the nonsense out of maniaKK. This is season late 4?
Something like that.
Where it's the support and the solo are laning together?
I mean, this would have been like Season 1 if it was a jungler and solo laner, like Season 1, Season 2 days, but instead it is that support.
Well, here comes the 2v1 against StreakUp. But yeah, that's a late Season 4, Season 5 type strat where we see our supports pushed in, and genetics says goodbye. Not just a Fearless, but the screen there. Nice job, Scottie Pippen. First blood for Obey Alliance.
You gotta respect the Fearless at the end of the day. I'm not sure how often genetics has experienced the power of that ability under Tier 1 Tower, but he's no stranger any longer to that one. Falling victim rather early to the solo lane nonetheless. It's gonna allow Ducky maybe now to make some of these rotations or to build his items to the point where he has the power in the lane, so he has more potential of getting the Totem of Coups, blue buffs, proxying between the Tier 1 and Tier 2, grabbing some of these back camps.
Ducky was able to find a lot of the Totem of Coups last time around, having an overwhelming, about 75% of them went his direction. So that was a nice look. For the Tier versus Amaterasu, kind of expected for sure.
And the way he's using that Fearless mechanically is so clean. He's sideways avoiding the tower with the Fearless, positioning it so that his endpoint is going to still be outside of the tower. And that's the way you really min-max winning your solo lane. Finding ways to not only damage the enemy, but avoiding any return fire, whether it's against the enemy god, the minions, or even the tower.
Always a game of inches there. centimeters, excuse me, Ducky, hailing from the other side of the pond. Simplicity, you know, in general, Europeans actually. Ducky, the lone European player on Obey Alliance. Weekend coming from Virginia. Mineral, New York. Wowy, the Great North. Moswal, the Great North as well. So North America, 4 to 5 here for Obey Alliance. Ducky and the Obey boys have really taken a liking to each other, though. I've really enjoyed watching them kind of have fun on the timeline and speaking to them. Speaking of Wowy, the number one thing he had to say, I was like, hey man, you're kind of like, you've always been a strong player on not so strong teams, right? And I asked him what the difference was between Obey and some of his other options. He's like, honestly, like, we just have a good time, like in the game, out of the game, win or lose. Like, we're always trying to take it seriously and improve, don't get it wrong, but it's about having that comfort level.
I mean, speaking of comfort and their synergy, like whether it's inside of SMITE or playing games outside of SMITE, just look at the names of Obey Alliance and how they're positioned, right? Like the W's and like the upside down M's, it's like, that's so synergetic. And then you got Ducky on top of it. It's like completely mirrored with Weekend. They even got the 3 in the same 5th slot compared to each other. Mind blown.
And that was your moment of zen, Anatoly Alexeyev.
See? It's like W and M and then W at the end. Weekend and Wowy are the buns, while Moswal and Mineral is like the beef in the middle. And Ducky's like the little sesame seed.
One to 0. Obey Alliance leading the charge right now. Close in gold, but we'll see how the game develops. Earlier in game number 1, if you're just joining us right this second, be thankful about that. Obey Alliance in game number 1 kind of ran it for 95% of it, and then Simplicity snatched it away after Obey makes a couple of missteps. But right now, tied up. A very slow-paced early game to be expected. That's what we saw in game number 1. We got virtually the same picks. That said, in game number 1, I was questioning why we didn't see more Faeles, Deathpanter, just Faeles by himself. I want to see that ult on cooldown more than it's not. Hitting level 6 right now for Faeles. This is that time where I want to see Danny get active. I want to see him go to town, start hitting that 4 button, and making it happen. We'll see if it will stay quiet like game 1, or maybe he changes it up here for the second shot.
I think he wants to wait for at least the Jotun's Wrath, get that 20% CDR available, an extra mana pool as well. StreakUp dealing with Wowy playing aggressive now. Very uncharacteristic of this matchup.
That's right there is why Wowy wants to play it into the set. Set jumps on you, can drop the Suns. Hoyi, I don't want to say wins the matchup, but it can at least send StreakUp walking away once he jumps on him.
I think the Kingslayer lasts long enough that that ability alone can win against Wowy's Sunbreaker ultimate, but then you got to worry about Defender of Olympus. However, if you trade out 1-for-1 ultimate and then force a second one, Simplicity could just walk away clean, reset, and then there's less pressure in the solo lane now, so that might allow maniaKK to be aggressive.
I think Faeles going to look for it. There's the wall, and the Kraken, and Mineral going to be isolated from the rest of the squad. Here comes the ultimate, landing down, double stun, and the spin to win. Simplicity dings it right here. Genetics in trouble, and Weekend will find the made you look. So 1-for-1 answered back. Support for support.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that Genetics took that pathing, actually, going south and towards the right buff instead of north towards Deathpanter, where he was a little bit safer there. But this is how Faeles needs to execute. He looks for that perfect timing to block off Mineral with the wall. And honestly, that kill should have been much cleaner. Deathpanter a little bit off the mark there with his Kraken. But there is that weird interaction with Kraken and that Thor wall, so I'm not going to give that much crap for Deathpanter about like not being optimal on that ability, but he needs to clean it up for the next time, because that ripple effect put Genetics in a weird spot. If that kill was a little faster, maybe Genetics lives there.
Bigger note for me is that Faeles did everything he needed to do right there, because I think Faeles is the difference maker for Simplicity. When they first started, Faeles had been fresh out of his kind of fall down from the SPL, and it was rough. and it took him a while to kind of get his sea legs. And then we saw him ramp up and ramp up and ramp up, and recently he's been one of the players that you point to. He's been one of the strong forces. And when Simplicity does well, it's usually off of the jungle and support. Wowy, and here comes Mineral, looking for StreakUp. And Toli, you painted the picture. And right there, they did it a second time.
I'm still surprised that StreakUp is looking for these plays, knowing that Defender of Olympus is up. If that play occurs when Mineral uses that ultimate on the soul lane side, it makes more sense in StreakUp's 1v1. Not only that, StreakUp hasn't fully evolved his Warrior's Blessing. So without that 15 protection, every tick of that Sunbreaker ultimate that you're taking just adds up.
Can be pretty tough there. Totem number 2 here for Obey. Interesting. This was the other way around in game 1.
It was, honestly. But now that we're seeing, I think, maniaK getting more control in this lane, having Berserker Shield, Ninja Tabi, he's feeling comfortable to look for some plays. And I think that once the death occurred from genetics, maniaK just opted for more Totem control as opposed to lane control.
Sure. Something to keep in mind.
It's hard for Tian or many other characters to out-DPS one single target with the passive from Amaterasu amplifying her abilities by 10%.
That is fair. And Tier is definitely kind of weighed on those abilities. Fearless interacts oddly. Sure.
Because normally most soul laners has like AoE damage that you can poke out the enemy and hit the Totem of the Q at the same time. If you're fearlessing the Amaterasu, you're not really hitting the Totem of Q in the process. So it doesn't surprise me too much that maniaK is able to get some footing on that neutral objective.
It doesn't surprise you too much?
Q much. Do you even Q, bro?
No. Simplicity here. Grabbing out some vision of the Gold Fury. 10 minutes on the clock. That means Gold Fury. Very, very interesting for both teams for sure. Right now, about an even game. Obey is inched ahead thanks to some neutral camp focus. The mid lane, mid Harpies specifically, have been black and blue. Big talk, genetics going to be isolated here, but a nice response from Deathpanter and the junglers in the sky. Mineral could be landed on. Instead, it's Moswal.
Oh, wow.
Beads are chased out, and that's a nice look there for Simplicity. A Thor for Beads, and that's what I want to see, Toli. Just in and out, again and again. The more time that Anvil of Dawn is off cooldown, the more angry I get.
I'm surprised that it was onto Moswal. I thought he was going to double in onto Mineral and weaken in the backline, but this makes more sense when I think about it because Simplicity was too far away to capitalize from that Anvil of Dawn, so it needed to be a quick hit and run. You smack Moswal, you force the beats, you disengage with a hammer.
I think he went up with the intention, because that's what I was thinking as well. I think Thor went up with the intention of landing on who you were talking about, and then once those players came out of the little Harpy cubby and walked further towards the mid lane, Faeles was just like, well, I gotta get something out of this. I'll land, TP away. Obey Alliance on the Gold Fury, brings it down to half, and then notice Simplicity around the corner, and they'll walk away. You said before, Toli, that you didn't think Obey was gonna gamble with the objectives this time.
Yeah, well, at least not the Fire Giant objective, right? Like, after that just sloppy call on the Fire Giant side, there needs to be some sort of switch up, and so far, it's been good. It's the same similar start, that Obey has the kill lead and the gold lead, but they're not forcing the objectives. They're gonna wait for maybe the aggression out of Simplicity, because Faeles doesn't seem to hesitate with these Anvil of Dawns, as he shouldn't, having 20% CDR now on the Jotans, but Weaken having a good power spike on his Erendite is waiting for that global to throw out a global of his own.
maniaK thought about it.
He dropped the ward there, backs off.
Again, the mid Harpies taken by Obey. And that's what happened last time around. Obey found themselves casually with a 1,000 gold lead and a 2,000 gold lead, very casually. It's really just the dominance of these mid Harpies here, maybe a back Harpy invade. Mostly slow and steady was the Obey Alliance lead garnered. And then big plays happened after the fact. Ducky, a very big part of this Obey team, pushes the opponent back into the tier 2. The rest of the teams focused on the left side. worried about this Gold Fury.
He was a full item ahead of maniaKK, full Blackthorn's hammer. Just now finishing the purchase of breastplate is maniaKK. So he didn't have the defense cooldowns to sustain Ducky's poke. Luckily his tower still standing. Not interested in any tower poke was Ducky, opting for the experience instead. And as a solo laner, there's a lot of different avenues you can take when your opponent is not present. You can proxy, you can go for tower damage, you can look for potential invade, or you could potentially rotate to middle to look for a play there.
Remember Elementals?
Oh yes, Season 4. I try to forget still. It's like deep in my mind. In the way back of my mind.
My favorite thing about Elementals there was Zeros' team used to call them bananas.
Yeah, I don't see the resemblance.
Nobody did, but you gotta get the bananas. That always tickled me a little bit.
Do they have a lot of potassium?
I don't know. You think oracles can be our bananas?
No, they're too dark. They're like plums.
No, you know what they are? They get vision, so they're carrots. And right there, split between the two of them. Obey gets one, Simplicity gets the other.
I like that.
Ducky finds himself again behind enemy lines. I love the jump as players are running away.
Just jumping away.
Yep, like, haha, I'm leaving. Okay. Ducky right now significantly tanky. The Glad Shield and the Blackthorn. Glad Shield Thor, yes, no?
On Thor?
Or, excuse me, Glad Shield Tier.
Oh, absolutely, yes. 10% CDR for a very cost-effective item. It's hard to get more than one, sometimes two targets on the Faeles, so you're not really maximizing the proc of Gladiator Shield from the sustain, but just having the 10% CDR, the power, the protection is a good bridge item because you're not keeping Gladiator Shield throughout the entire course of a game anyway, so it's a good little bridge.
A lot of characters who need the proc. King Arthur hardly exists without the proc, right? But here it's just a stat stick. Two players looking for mineral. They'll get rooted. Howled at. Response. Slowly. Obey. Don't want to rush in here because you've got a thought that somebody's around the corner and they're right. It's Deathpanter. That said, Deathpanter's still going to crack at mineral. Ducky goes up and down, and here come the Suns. Trouble as Ducky is going to be tossed to the left-hand side. Wowy landed on and slammed on. Faeles, sets it up and puts it down. 2 for the jungler, and Deathpanter will pick up 1. Weekend's lined up. This could be huge. Venus is done, and all he wants to do is run away. If Weekend has, I don't know, maybe a little bit more of an item, why did he stay aggressive?
He only had Moswal, unfortunately. His other 3 supporting members, the front line is gone. Wowy had no damage. If Weekend stays to punch, he doesn't have Bloodforge to continue that fight. He might get 1, might get 2, but he's guaranteed dead. Unfortunately, he dies anyway because it was Simplicity not forcing the objective. They understood the positioning of Weekend was looking for the flank if they did start the objective, so they secured the kill, and now they secured the objective.
Gold Fury goes to the European minor league team. They'll find themselves up 1995. That said, Genetics still doesn't look happy. I think that's a big part of what allows Simplicity to be successful. It's a demand for excellence from Genetics. He's really a take no stuff type of guy, and when it comes down to competition, it's not a bad thing. So Gold Fury goes to Simplicity. They're still looking to improve.
And now I'm just thinking about his switch up between the Terra and the Xing Chen, and it makes a lot of sense when I think about it, because that Furious Roar mitigates so much basic attack damage that Weekend can't really be super effective if he gets hit by it. Once he dives in the backline, Genetics will be looking for Weekend.
That's really big. Talked it right now, the player of conversation. No problemo. 2,000 gold lead. Not something Simplicity can bring to the bank, but something they are willing to work with. maniaKK in a bad spot, but it could just be baiting Ducky into a worse one. Stuck in the cove and right the flip. Heal up, dash forward, and all of a sudden maniaKK's stuck. Ducky's still alive. We can find his way out of the backside. Deathpanter taken down by Ducky and traded out immediately by Faeles, who finds the kill on the right side. Obey still surging forward. Double stun from Thor.
Oh, Maniac needs to go into his mobility divine presence. Instead, he's in the power one. Genetics will sacrifice his
Great
life.
taunt.
Maniac dashing away in the nick of time. And honestly, that 1-for-1 to become a 1-for-2 could have been negated. I think Faeles hesitated too long in the Anvil of Dawn. He saw Ducky in the back line, taking advantage of Deathpanter, and landed too late.
Faeles has been a shining star in this game. Not infallible. 4-0-2 to the jungler. Maniac gets taunted. Good wall. Single tap. And there comes the dazzling offensive. Dodged out by Weaken. Good job there with the dash.
Obey can't get anything with their 2-for-1 advantage. Great play from the front line out of Simplicity. They're playing like the SPL veteran team here because despite not having the numbers advantage, they're kind of pulling and pushing Obey to their will of how they can stretch them out. Having all this CDR now onto Maniac, he's feeling very comfortable making those dazzling offensive plays.
The Oni Hunter's Garb, one of my favorite items. It makes you tankier when you're surrounded by players. And Amaterasu is going to be looking to dive, find those stuns among the entire team. This is one of my favorite items. Also, for what it's worth, that CCR, very effective versus the Athena taunt, which has been integral in this team's success, this team being Obey Alliance. Mineral has really stepped it up, and this Mineral is a different player on the Athena. And I do wonder if this goes to a game 3, if he gets to play it again.
I think he would, honestly.
No. I know he will.
Oh,
Will he be allowed to is the
Gotcha.
question, because he's a different person. This is the defender of Olympus, the taunts. He just has what it takes on the Athena. The other picks, he's not a slouch, but it's not this level of play.
I mean, it's stopping Set on StreakUp to be aggressive in the early to mid game the way he wants to. That's number one. Number two, it's forcing a purification beads onto Maniac where he probably wouldn't want to pick that up. Instead, he probably would want a team fighting relic.
Sure.
Or maybe a blink, something to be more aggressive with. But I'm a little surprised that Mineral doesn't go for Blink. Instead, he opted for Beats himself. A little bit worried about the counter CC if he gets caught under the Thor wall. That sets up Deathpanter for a lot of burst damage follow-up.
I think the beads, it's funny because when we see supports with beads, it's usually, the term we use is selfish. But I actually think the beads for Mineral is selfless because if he's crowd controlled, he can't peel for the team. And I think that's where it is. It's less about, well, if I need the beads to get on Fenrir's mouth and save myself like we usually see, I need the beads to get out of the Kempery pool to save myself like we usually see. Here, it's, I need the beads because somebody's going to kill Moswal.
And it's stronger than just Faeles' Thor stun,
Yeah.
the CC. It's going to be Genetics' Whirlwind of Rage and Steel. Getting pulled by that, like if I'm Mineral, I'm looking for the dash taunt. And if I'm already committed my dash and I'm going to get pulled by a Xing Chen, yeah, I'm probably going to need to beat that ability.
Xing Chen is where I'm looking for because Xing Chen grabs the whole team. Two of you beads, the other two die. If Mineral's the one that can get out of it, can taunt away the follow-up damage. I'm a big proponent of supports with beads for what it's worth.
Listen, if I'm a Xing Chen and I hit 4 players with my ultimate, the other team needs to worry about their positioning. And I question how they even got to this point in the league in the first place.
Hey,
if they're
man,
grouping up like that.
Xing Chen takes a long time to spin up that ult.
Which is why if you get hit by 4, like if you get hit by 4 players, your team did something wrong. But to be fair to Obey, they have not been grouping up in such a manner.
Man, that ultimate used to be so fast. Do you recall, one of my favorite posts on our SMITE was, what do you do while waiting for Xing Chen to ult? And the top comment was like, read a book. Watch Titanic. Like it was all these absurdly long things.
Do laundry.
One of my favorite r SMITE threads. They've got some gems there. Nice lull in the action. I think we are technically fighting over the Primal Fury. Simplicity looking for the positioning and daring to fight on Mineral. Ducky sitting out on the right-hand side. Moswal trying to play it safe and Maniac threatening in and coming through. Here comes StreakUp. Down goes the mid-lane Tage to StreakUp. The hand that pays it forward. Wowy will fall, double kill for StreakUp, but Ducky gets him after the fact. 1 for 2, Carry feeling good. Genetics on the run. Weekend's trying to line one up, but he's too low. He's already too gone. Ultimate will be safe. Ducky, remember him? Down goes Deathpanter. It's a 2 for 2.
Yeah, you can't forget about the Duckster. He's going to make you pay for that one, chasing them down. Not having the mobility compared to maniaK, but that was a very well-calculated dive from Simplicity. maniaK in the backline, StreakUp to follow up. Xing passed Wowy's ultimate and still committed under the suns for the last hit. But once you commit that deep, hard to really disengage after the fact. And this is where Simplicity's non-team fighting relics are going to hurt them. Yes, they can get these first 2 kills, but they can't really get out after the fact.
We were talking a little bit through it, but that's what the basketball term would be off-ball movement. Simplicity that entire time when they were moving around, that was, you could go over the replay before they fight and talk about the intricacies of the space control and the way that Simplicity were able to move around that, put their pieces in play. It felt like what was that game? Hand of the Gods. It felt like where they were positioning their pieces and then hitting go. Simplicity put maniaK in a spot to chase down Moswal. They put everybody in a spot. And the one thing that, why Ducky was full HP? Ducky was sitting mid lane, and he wasn't a part of their equation, which is why Ducky was able to even it up 2 for 2. He got the double kill there. StreakUp picks up 2, and Ducky picks up 2. And it's because Ducky avoided all of the chalkboard that Simplicity were running on.
And even though Moswal fell first in that fight, his passive helped out a lot for Obey to confirm those 2 return kills, doing a lot of damage with his harvest. And I think that Simplicity needs to evaluate, like, okay, yes, we can get these kills, but if we can't get out, like, is it even worth going that deep behind enemy lines? Like, yes, StreakUp and maniaK can go past the Houyi Suns, but not many other Simplicity members can follow suit.
Well, you're sitting here, horns locked, even at 60,000 gold. Simplicity's up 1,000, but you know I don't brag when I have 50 cents. 8 to 7. Simplicity with another slight lead in that category. Hey, over there! Tied up for my money. Primal Fury, the objective of choice, and Obey Alliance will grab the oracles, bananas, which means they have vision. That said,
The carrots.
better. That said, there is a sentry ward there from Simplicity, so everybody's got eyes on the gold. Ducky in a bad spot. Tanky as the moon, though, so no big deal if he gets caught out just a little bit. Mineral dashes away. And Simplicity have control of their side one more time. Obey Alliance, though. I think they're the ones in the driver's seat. Simplicity are ready to jump aboard. Set's going to find the flank, and Wowy's got to be careful. Obey, in general, backs off.
Looking for a bait. If they can catch one target with the Athena taunt, they're just going to blow them up. Wowy's in this powerful late game form. A lot of attack speed with Chin Size, Ninja Taobai, Executioner. That Mark of the Golden Crow is maxed out now, so you get 2-3 shots even on that same target during the duration of the taunt. Suddenly, maniaK is sitting at 60% health off of that 2-second taunt.
So looking right here what Moswal is doing, this is important because this is Persephone specific. He's building up this garden, so to speak, and right now if anybody jumps on him, they're going to blow up.
Oh yeah.
This is where Persephone is good. Lane phase, it feels so hard to play against her because she benefits from being positioned in one spot, which is why Obey are looking for these Gold Furies, these Fire Giants, because they're allowed to kind of stand still and bring the fight to Moswal. There can be a large explosion, but if Moswal has to run around and chase the fight, it's a different story.
maniaK forced to use the beats very early, and just like that, like he commits in 50% health, forced to disengage, still hold on to the ultimate, however, so if Obey are too frisky, they're gonna have to deal with that dazzling offensive.
Speaking of frisky, he can have been charging and uncharging that ultimate. Genetics taunted, Deathpanter with the whirlpool on reaction. Love to see that. The taunt comes through from the Athena, and Panther just drops the whirlpool going, all right, if somebody wants to go on top of this taunt, they're going to be on top of my whirlpool.
The same amount of damage maniaK took, Mineral received in return. So really hard for either of these frontliners to go in cleanly, but Simplicity feeling confident that they can force the issue alongside this Primal Fury now.
Mozzie looking for red. maniaK sees it. Ducky shoving Simplicity back into position. And Obey will deter any aggression there. Ducky starts to Primal Fury, but again, ornamental for sure.
Yeah, this is not going to be a full-on commit. They're just looking for a bait.
Fnatic's still in trouble. Ducky's behind enemy lines.
Okay.
And big poke onto Weaken. That might be enough to send Simplicity going forward. Thor's in the air. Lands down on the south side. Chases out beats from Moswal. Again, the target. And again, Deathpanter picks up Ducky on the backside. Faeles gets Moswal on the front side. 2 down in Obey jerseys. And all the while, Weaken just not a part.
Non-existent. On the backline, he took too much damage from one hammer, and he is just walking away. Can't even split push for dead Obey Alliance members as Simplicity take out the tier 2 tower. They're going for the Phoenix. They might even go for the end.
You know what? There's 30 plus seconds on a lot of these players. Weaken's gonna show up. maniaK's just gonna deal with it. Minions coming down the lane.
They're
20
go
seconds still. Left side, Phoenix is gone. Simplicity walking into the throne room. They've got 20 seconds to go. Half HP on StreakUp. Deathpanter's gonna go down. Weaken with a good play there. 90% left to go on the Titan. Weaken picked up and put down. Running back to the fountain. 4 players and a wave of minions surrounding the Titan. 29 on the clock. Weaken's down. The Titan picks up 1, but it's not enough. Obey Alliance sits down, and Simplicity, the minor league team, moves on.
Both minor league teams in their respective regions take out their SPL opponents in the first round, advance past day number 1.
Incredible. I did not think that it would end like that. Just crazy. That said, you know, we're getting ahead of ourselves. Double elimination. It's Monday. We've got a lot of SMITE to play this week. But looking at that one, Simplicity, surprise, we're the winners.
I mean, they are a team to be respected with their player pool, right? maniaKK, Deathpanter, Faeles. These are players that's been in the SPL before, like Genetics and StreakUp. They're going to have their time in the sun now, and they have a lot of talent to be able to execute. When you make a mistake against this team, you're going to get punished. We saw what happened at MSI when Armada took out Rival. We saw what happened in Season 5 even, where Insignum took out Trifecta in the first round, went really deep as well in the lower bracket. Minor league teams feel like they've been forgotten about by the SPL teams.
You know what, to be fair to Simplicity, I think that they do have their struggles, but all these teams kind of have their 99 stat. The decision-making for Simplicity throughout the season and here at this stage, even at MSI, has looked good, and right now it takes them into the further stages of the tournament. Impressive stuff for sure. We'll talk to them after this break.
And that does it here for day 1, a placement week as we make our way to the World Championship. It's a 2-0 in our SPL versus SML set, but not in the way that you might have thought. It's not Obey, Simplicity. The SML EU #1 seed is the one that comes out on top here in this set, and Zeros I have right here next to me on the desk. I mean, you can't have expected to have gone this way, right? I mean, I sure didn't. I was giving Obey the benefit of the doubt, especially after game 1. They were ahead for almost the whole game, and then this time, Simplicity closed it out again.
Yeah, just crazy. Like, after seeing the early game from the first game where Obey have the exact same draft as in this game, just being so dominant and loses the game of one bad fire gun call pretty much. They lock in the same draft in the second game thinking, it's probably going to be good again, right? But then I think the Xing Tian pick made a big difference, though. Like, not as easy to punish as the Terra for the Persephone, especially.
That's right. I mean, and you were just saying to me that, that maybe we might be putting too high a premium on this Persephone. Where are you starting to come down now that you've seen a little bit more of her?
Still have to see more of her, I think.
Sure.
I think even the players that play her in this tournament now, or is SPL or whatever they play her, hasn't played her enough, because I'm pretty sure she's just banned every game.
Yeah.
Like, she's banned a lot in SPL, probably in scrims as well, so I'm still not sure where I put her.
I think there's something to be said for that. I mean, you just don't get nearly as many reps, I imagine, with Persephone in a world where you assume she's auto-banned. So that's one more thread to try and keep track of, is do teams allow that pick to start sneaking through and challenge these mid laners to be ready for it? I'm sure Moswal was, but it just did not work for them here this time. In Game 1, they were ahead in a pretty commanding way, let it slip away. But in Game 2, that wasn't quite the case, right? I mean, it was pretty even, really, at that last point when Simplicity broke through.
Yeah, I kind of feel like second game was kind of similar to the first game. It was like switch roles, you know. I feel like Simplicity had the momentum in the second game, but they never got to throw at the Fire Giant or anything like that. They would just end the game when they had the chance to. So just really well played from them.
And they get this set 2 games in a row and streak up both times, makes it look so strong. I mean, that's what we mean when we talk about a hyper carry, man, where they only need one fight, where they can get a little bit of time in that back line in a fight, and they just wreak havoc, and that's exactly what StreakUp was able to do. But it wasn't just him. Faeles' Thor was really impactful this game as well. Simplicity, they were not gifted this set by any means. They walked in here and took it from Obey today, and you got to take this team seriously, just like everybody else in the pool.
Yeah, for sure. This set pick is kind of weird, though, because I thought, like, pretty smart by Obey. They had the Athena support both games.
Yeah.
And Set really want to play aggressive in lane, I think. And Athena prevents that so much with her global ult, right? And we saw StreakUp get punished by that quite a few times. He tried to play aggressive with his dash. Athena would ult over straight away. They would kill him. So, but even that wasn't enough for Obey, so.
And you could tell how much it meant to Genetics just now at that last clip, the pop-off towards the end of the game, as Simplicity clearly ecstatic about getting to continue to move on throughout this bracket. We talked about this already. The winner will be moving on to play the winner of that LG hype set. The loser, though, is going to be dropping down to play Space Station. That means it's Obey. Kind of as you alluded to, it's going to be 2 SPL teams in the loser bracket. It's one of those matches. One of them is going to be going home. It's hard to believe. But that's all in the future. Right here in the here and now, maniaKK and StreakUp, after their big win, are standing by for the interview.
What's good, folks? StreakUp and maniaKK here representing Simplicity. First and foremost, congratulations on the victory. You guys will go march on. Let's talk about this set, though. Specifically, let's talk about this set. StreakUp, how'd you feel about playing the Assassin in lane?
I really like playing Assassins in dual lane, so that's I really like the playstyle as well. So I used to play jungle a bit, so it's pretty good.
Speaking of game number 2, maniaKK, for you, when you saw Genetics die for first blood by a Fearless under the tower, what was going through your mind?
I asked him, do you have a jump? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, we should be fine. And then he gets Fearless in time. Like, I'm waiting for him to jump, and he doesn't jump. I'm like, bro, where's your jump? And he's like, oh, I got my one. I'm like, fuck, dude.
I mean, you asked him, right? You have the jump, you have it, where'd it go? Anyway,
Yeah.
you guys wound up pulling it out in the end. When you guys got a couple of kills there and just ran it down the lane, did you know you won the game right then and there?
On the last game?
Yeah.
I mean, we were 99% sure. And then Panther dies, and he's like, oh, I'm dead. And maybe he thought we couldn't win, but deep down we knew we could win.
So now you guys are waiting for the winner of LG versus Hype Unit SML team. What are your thoughts for both of these teams? Do you prefer one opponent over the other? Talk to me about that.
I think we prefer Hype Unit SML, but we prepared for IG more than Hype Unit, so we are confident.
Yeah, I mean, I share the same thoughts as Streak. Both are good teams, so I mean, either one that comes is gonna be a tough job for us. So it doesn't matter.
Sounds good. You guys sound real confident in kind of whoever you're going to come up against. You guys looking at mid-season invitational to here. Are there any big things that you did differently to get to this level of play?
Not much. I mean, throughout the season, we changed the streak to mid and Panther to ADC like for a few, 3-4 games, and it worked out because we were having a slump in SML. But apart from that, it was just normal practice, just normal, yeah.
Awesome. Well, great stuff. Again, congratulations on the win. StreakUp, maniaKK, thanks for your time. Good luck at the tournament. Back to you on the desk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good to get a chance to hear from Simplicity. Clearly, they are confident. Here is your updated bracket, though, after day one of the placements. After, obviously, the console wars happened on Sunday. We have Sanguine and Simplicity already moving on to round 3 after their wins. They'll be awaiting SK and Out Cold, the winner of that, and then the winner from LG and Hype Unit, the SML variant of them. And we do also already have some teams down there in the lower bracket as well. That's Obey, Hype Unit, the console team, Space Station, and Rivals console team are all down there. And as we mentioned, those two teams could both end up not making it on through to the losers round 2. There's 2 SPL teams already down in the bottom.
Yeah, that's just so crazy.
Isn't it?
I was thinking maybe one, if they mess up or something, but both, that is just unreal.
It is very surprising, I agree. Now, I imagine those two teams will both be moving on, but that Hype Unit console team really showed us something, man. That match might be a lot closer than some teams are expecting. You're not going to want to miss a minute of the placement week. Remember, only 2 teams are going to be moving up from this to join the 6 top SPL teams that are already waiting in that HRX DreamHack bracket. We'll be back starting things again at 11 a.m. tomorrow Eastern Time, so I'll see you then.